It is a brand new edition of Flyers Daily. It's kind of a rare edition because today's Wednesday. It's Hump Day, but it's also a Wednesday with Bill Meltzer joining us from PhiladelphiaFlyers.com, NHL.com, and HockeyHotStove.com. It is Bill Meltzer. By the way, we're brought to you by Ticketmaster. Make more memories live. Join Bill here on this Wednesday. We had Rick Tocchet on Monday. It's been quite busy, Bill, with a lot of things going on. Your last appearance here, the Monday before this past one, we said, I'm feeling something's going to go down this week. We had no inside information, but it just felt like it was coming. Well, it came. It's Rick Tocchet. It's the 25th head coach of the Philadelphia Flyers.
No, for sure. And, now things will kind of drips and drabs. I'll be interested to see whether the entire assistant coach staff is announced at once, because that's often the way that it works, or, per each hire. But with Brad Shaw electing to move on, there really, other than Kim Dilbaugh, there's a whole staff to fill. So
yeah, people, we wanted Brad Shaw to stay, but it was a really precarious position he was in, being up for the job, not getting it as kind of an incumbent up for the job as an assistant to get elevated, not getting it, and then working for the guy that got the job that you didn't get. Now, I went through the same thing in radio. Happened to me at WIP years ago, and I stayed. And I did do I did report to the guy that was hired. It was a huge mistake by me.
Right.
And it is an uncomfortable position because you just find yourself second guessing everything they do. Even if maybe you would have done it that way, you still second guess it because you didn't get the job. So really precarious position that Brad Shaw was in.
It's certainly uncomfortable, right? And, it's at a certain point, I think you just feel you break clean and move on. The only time that I can remember someone being head coach or interim head coach and then being asked to stay on as an assistant and actually accepting it, and it was actually Bundy brought up the other day, was Wayne Cashman.
Yeah.
He started the year as head coach, and Roger Nielsen came in, and they asked Cash, do you want to stay on as an assistant? And I think Bob Clark was shocked when he said, okay, I'll do it.
Yeah.
So
who wouldn't want to work with Roger Nielsen though? That'd be every day.
No, for sure.
Yeah, he's such a character.
But it's unusual.
It's very strange, and I'm sure Brad Shaw, he looked at this as hey, I got another opportunity, one that I haven't maybe had in a while, to jump into the head coach chair, and I'm sure he's disappointed and feels like it's never going to happen for him. To me, he's always been built as more of a assistant coach by the way he coaches. And the other thing that's really difficult about giving an assistant, a guy who was an assistant, the head job, is the jump from being the good cop working with Torts to all of a sudden being the hammer and the bad cop. It's just not his personality. And that's a hard thing to just flip and have the players respect it.
For sure. And one thing that actually Talk said on Friday when they did the breakout interviews, and I did the takeaways article on the Flyers website, because he said that the number one thing you have to be as the head coach is you have to be yourself.
Yeah.
Right. He can't try to be anybody other than himself, and you have to allow the players to be themselves with you too. So I think that I think Brad Shaw's nature, as you said, is more of an assistant coach. Plus the head coach has to take the 5,000-foot view all the time, because it's there's so many big details that you're dealing with, whereas the assistant coaches go into more of the minutia, and that's really what Shawzy's best at. So hate to see him go. Great guy,
done a hell of a job,
coach.
Man.
But obviously wish him all the best, and there'll be obviously other opportunities for him. He's in demand. So
yeah, he's tremendous. He's a really good man too, and we wish him the best for sure. And you're right. Something I talked about with Talk in my interview with him on Friday as well was that the head coach has to take that macro view from above.
Yeah.
He has to manage everything, and he also has to, make sure that everybody's on the same page when you hire and assemble a staff. Let's go to Talk first and foremost. I don't think either of us were surprised. I maybe was a little bit surprised.
Yeah.
He had so many options out there. We had heard first maybe he's going back to TV. He mentioned his family in the kind of goodbye letter to Vancouver, and taking on his next challenge. And I thought maybe he was leaning towards TV.
Yeah.
Ultimately, he comes up here. But I can tell you, Bill, I'm sure that Danny Briere had to do a pretty good sell job on him to get him to accept this job, because there wasn't many jobs that were open that he wasn't a leading candidate for.
Yeah.
How did he sell him?
Yeah. I mean, he was certainly in demand. I think that the personal relationships are only a backdrop in this.
I agree.
Right. I mean, obviously that plays in, and anytime you have a previous relationship, working relationship, friendships, but I think the backdrop is, listen, this is what we're planning to do over the next few years. He's getting 5 years on the deal, so which is really 4, because we've talked before about the final year of a deal. It's either time to extend or that's the point where somebody might move on. But 4 years, and it's a pretty long time in this business. So I think it's time for him to be able to enact what he wants to do. See how the roster takes shape. I don't think that there's going to be any miracles overnight, but you go, okay, try to get better this year. Try to get a lot better the year after that, and see where you go. In one point that's come up over and over and over again, and I hope people understand that this is 100% genuine, that Tocchet is a very good communicator with his players. Whether he's the best X and O coach or whatever, that's for others to judge. But in terms of his relationship with players, and he's A+ with that, and he certainly is competent in all the other areas too. But I think he stands out more than any other place in one area. I think that is the area, and given the fact that an important part of the previous tenure ending, and why Brad Shaw was a good transitional guy to the next head coach, was that they were not on the same page in terms of communications. Right.
Yeah. Danny mentioned it being a big part of this hire was the ability to communicate with players.
Yeah, and certainly picking Talk falls in line with that, because again, if he's good at one thing, exceptional one thing above the others in the field, I think that is that one area where you say he's over and above a lot of the other guys who are candidates.
Bill, in today's game with today's player, that element of a coach has become more and more important. Back in the day, you didn't care about the communication. It was what I say. It doesn't matter if you hear me or not. You're going to do what I say what I do. You're going to do that. In today's NHL, they want to know why. And you've got to communicate. You've got to have that open line with today's athlete. I actually think the part about, him having an existing relationship with Keith Jones or Danny Briere is a little bit of a complication in the beginning. You go, yeah. I don't want to cross those streams. I've talked to Jonesy about this before. Sometimes you don't want to mix your personal relationships with your professional, because when it comes down to it, every coach is hired to be fired. You're going to have to fire your friend at some point, and you wonder if that's going to come into play. And I don't think that guys like Keith Jones go out looking for their friends to hire, because there's a friendship there, and you don't want to ruin that. So I think that is a complication first, but you have to see if the guy checks all the other boxes. You got to overcome that, and I think that's kind of the arc of this process with them and Rick Tocchet. And I totally agree with you. I think the communication thing's a really big deal, which I wasn't surprised when I saw the video come out of them, Dan Hilferty, Danny Briere, and Keith Jones in the office on the speakerphone calling Sean Couturier to tell him before anybody else and before he heard it anywhere else. And then at the end of that call, I thought it was really important what Jonesy said. You should be the one to tell your teammates.
Yeah.
It's regaining his captaincy in a way by the lack of communication he had with Torts.
Correct. Yeah, that was not a positive relationship, and I think that contacting Coots first and be doing it publicly is a statement. Saying
Respect.
that the communication lines will be strong in this case. And you are the guy, we signed his long-term contract. You're still our leader, as the organization sees it. And, with the respect that we have for you, it's your role as the captain to be the one who tells everybody else. And I thought that was tremendous. I mean, that pretty much of all things, years down the line, if I remember, what I remember from this whole process, that will be the thing that I'll remember most of all.
I agree with you. And I think it's so important for the other players on the team to hear it from him too. It gets me really excited about the future for Sean Couturier, because I don't think he's done, Bill. I don't think he's cooked. Is he going to be a 76-point player, 30-plus goals? I don't think so.
Yeah.
But I think he still has something to give. And him being on an open communication with a new coach and a guy, I think that they'll have mutual respect for each other. Coots for Tocchet's playing days and his coaching days and his ability to communicate. I really look forward to that combination. And it really felt to me like this is the fresh start. That phone call was the fresh start. It wasn't the hiring of Tocchet. It was seeing that video that really kind of turned it for me. I think it's really important. You talk about culture. That was a culture move, and it was a really savvy move as well. Let's talk about some of the other players. When John Tortorella was hired, there were certain players I remember pinpointing saying, he's going to love this guy. Oh, he might have an issue with this guy. I look at guys and I go immediately, Rick Tocchet's going to love this guy. And I look at a guy like Travis Sanheim. Mm-hmm. I go, he's going to love, because you're going to have to pull him off the ice at the end of practice because he's always working on some, minuscule detail of his game that may save your bacon one night. Like a chip on the backhand off the wall that he's worked on after practice. He's going to see those things and see that quiet leadership that he provides. He's going to love Travis Sanheim. I think he's poised for another huge year and probably another step in his kind of development as a player. He's been good the last 2 years. I think he's got even further to go, and I think he believes it now too.
Yeah, and I mean they work together, a little bit.
Four Nations.
Mm-hmm. So there's some backdrop there, but you have I think every year in one way or another, really since the second year Torts was here. So some credit goes there too, because they did not have a good relationship at all the first year, but it improved the second year, and Travis got better as a player. And I think he got better again the year after that. It's just a question of, you don't want to have any kind of a. If he could keep that level, or mostly keep that level, he played in November, December.
Sustain it for 82.
Yeah, sustain it as much as possible. Anyway,
yeah.
I mean that really I think is the last step for him to take. And if he can do that, then that solves a whole lot of issues. But yeah,
he does. He sustains that. He may be in conversation for an Norris.
If he would do that for a whole year, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean that's what that's the level we're talking about. Of defensemen. You're looking at a guy, close to Miro Heiskanen. You're not looking at a Quinn Hughes or a Cale Makar because they're different. They're built differently. But you're looking at one of those guys like a Heiskanen type player or a Hedman, that type of level.
Yeah, and well, you're talking about a big defenseman who can skate the way he does, and I think that with Sanheim too, there's so many. The day he was drafted in 2014, Chris Pryor was still the director of scouting at that time, player personnel director, and he said, if it all comes together, he could be a guy with the four S's, right? The size, the skill, the hockey sense, right?
And the skating,
strength that fell out at that time, which he since did, because pretty skinny kid back then, but he filled out. He's big and strong now. So yeah, all those L's look for. Again, you just want to see it over a whole year, and I think being able to work with Rick Tocchet and whoever the next defense coach will be too, I think it'll be a positive thing for him.
One of the names we've heard about, one of the assistants, is Luke Richardson. And of course, his last job was the head coach in Chicago. He got let go, kind of got a raw deal there. He didn't have any players. But he's a guy that could be ticketed to come with Rick Tocchet. He's a hell of a coach, from what I understand from people that know. I have not dealt with him a whole heck of a lot. But for some of the people I've talked to about him since his name popped up, he is widely respected. He'd be a good guy to coach the D and the penalty kill.
Yeah, and I don't think that I don't think Luke has seen his last head coaching job in the NHL either. No. So I take that half step back to an assistant coach. It just checks a lot of boxes. I think he's a natural for that role too. So I think he'd be a good fit, and it would not surprise me at all if it is Luke. There's about it. Honestly, Jason, I'm maybe even more interested to see the forwards and power play coach.
Yeah, that's the next thing I was going to get to, because Talk has coached some very productive power plays. We know what the last 3-4 years have been power play wise around here. They've been freaking abysmal. Yeah. Not even bad, abysmal. Like, you and I got to the point where we're like, I can't even talk about it anymore. We just, It's so bad. It's so discouraging. It's so deflating in game. And you looked at it so many times, you go, if this team just had an average power play, they'd be in the mix for the playoffs. But they couldn't even get close to average. They were hideous. What does Talk do on the power play that's going to that possibly bring success?
Well, I mean, some of it is you absorb things, I think, that have worked on teams without a ton of talent. I watched a pretty fair amount of Calgary this year. Not a team loaded with talent, right? But they were 20% power play this year. And I would watch their entries, and that's a pretty good entry team, right? Because there are always options. So many times I think we've watched the Flyers try to enter at the corner of the blue line, right, and they go no further. Where you have options, whether a guy can skate it in, or he has a safety valve he can pass it to, or there's somebody like a little half strike, but there are options. So there's not only you're only limited to one way of potentially getting into the zone. I think it all starts with the entries, because if you don't, when the Flyers didn't win that first faceoff, and
power play over,
once they had to go down the ice, you knew there was a very good chance that whole power play was just not going to click.
Yeah.
Obviously, a good power play has to be able to regroup and get back down the ice and set up and whatnot. But it can't be one and done off of the face-off if you don't win it.
Yeah.
And score very quickly. So I think you have to start with the most basic things. What do you do if you win the draw? If you don't win the draw, are you going to go with? Are you going to go with like maybe a double net front look, for example, which is something they had brief periods of success with, and whoever the power play coach will be. I know Talk said that he wants to give his coaches a pretty fair amount of autonomy, but they'll work out ideas. They did the power play committee last year, which sounded great in theory and got off to a good start.
Yeah.
But that didn't meet all year. I think that was more of a preseason thing. I think you have to have a good game plan going in, establish some basic things that you can fall back on, because every power play has its ups and its downs. But if you're going to build a good foundation in the power play, I mean, there's really nowhere to go but up. And even if you're an 18% power play, which still puts you near the bottom of the league nowadays, but it's respectable. It's not killing you. So I think you take the baby steps on it, and I'll be really interested to get to see who the coach will be, and also too, there's also something that Bundy brought up that I thought was interesting. He said, when teams look at how they improve the power play, they always look to guys who played power play their whole careers. So why don't you talk to guys who killed penalties?
Defended it.
Say what kind of power plays gave you some trouble?
Yeah,
and I think that's a useful piece of it too.
Yeah, and look, you talk to guys that defend on the PK, and they'll tell you the hardest thing to defend is unpredictability. And that's where they got to figure out too. How do they want their power play to run? Who do they want it to run through? And the easy answer is it's Mishkov, right? On a half wall type thing. I don't know if he's the right guy to run it through because of his unpredictability. I'd almost like to see it run through someone else, but you have no idea where Mishkov's going to get the puck. Is he going to get the puck curling up from the goal line to the half wall to cut to the middle at the top of the circles? Is he going to be working down low behind the net? I want him to utilize all of those spaces.
Oh, for sure. They're going to need a guy at the point.
Yeah.
If you don't respect his ability to put it on the net, he will do it. And it doesn't have to be a big clapper. It could be a wrist shot, but he has to be able to get
a lane.
Some consistency. Yeah. If you can do that, have your guy on the half wall, have somebody who can create a little havoc in front. Lo and behold, you have at least a respectable power play.
Yeah,
at least the beginnings of one. So I think there's pieces that have to come together, but it's not impossible to get there either.
Yeah, I've always said the enemy of defending is lack of predictability. Yeah. Predictability plays right into a defensive team's hands. So you've got to be unpredictable. You can't throw the same look. And I think with Mishkov, when you got the right players and the right person directing it, I think he's going to just lend so much of that lack of predictability to it because of his positionless hockey, and he can play, score, and generate offense from any area inside that blue line, and he believes it. And then the other thing is, with him, I was talking to Rick Tocchet on Friday, and it was on Monday's episode. I asked Tocchet about his systems because there's a lot of false narratives out there about Tocchet's system. They all assume that because a guy played dump and chase hockey in the early 80s, that his teams play that way here in 2025 that he coaches, which is obviously not true. Now, and it's funny because they crap on the dump and chase like crazy, yet I watch the Florida Panthers. Yeah. You will see no team dump the puck as much as they do. They're a great dump and chase team.
Or Carolina, which is the number one possession team in the NHL year after year after year. Yeah. It's a different kind of dump and chase. It's a speed-based dump and chase because they'll be first on the puck.
Yep.
But it's a dump and chase.
They're dumping it to areas, strategic areas.
Correct. Yeah. And then going in faster and retrieving it. So yeah. So that is exactly. I think labels get put on things. Yeah. And there's sometimes an assumption that a team, like a fast team, for example, is a team that just carries it in, whereas
you don't carry it very often.
There's any numbers of ways of accomplishing things. One thing that Toc said, which I've felt for years, and I do agree with wholeheartedly, said, you can win with a lot of different kinds of systems.
Yeah.
If there was only one system that worked, everybody would be doing it.
Yeah, and everybody would defend it with the one system of defense that works.
Exactly.
But then again, that would become predictable, which would play into the hands of defending teams. Yeah, like Florida does the dump and chase far different than Carolina. You're right. Carolina is like precision and speed, and great best puck possession team I've seen in the last decade, bar none, not even close. Florida does it through sheer power and 5-man unit moving through the neutral zone. And I charted a first period when that narrative was all over Twitter. They had 16 dump-ins and 2 where they obtained the zone with possession. And that was because it was off the rush. And there were the opposition at that time, I guess it was in the first round against Tampa, wasn't defending the blue line hard because they were in rush defense. Yeah. So, and look, dump and chase hockey is not dinosaur hockey. It's not. It's always going to be a part of it because if you have 2 guys moving up ice without support on 3 or 4, you're going to dump it in behind them and try and get in on them. And then that's where the system comes in. That's where a 2-1-2-4 check comes in, or a 1-2-2. It depends on what you want to do in the situation. So, this notion that he was going to stifle Mishkov's offense. I mean, he said to me on when I talked to him on Friday on the episode that it came out on Monday, I'm not going to ask Matvei Mishkov to dump and chase. Yeah. That would be silly. I want him with possession as much as he can get it.
Yeah, no, for sure. You know what is dinosaur hockey? That 0-2 2-2,
Yeah.
where actually gets to the blue line, but there's the neutral zone is like swimming through seaweed.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we don't see that anymore.
Left wing lock.
Left wing log. I mean, Detroit perfected that, right?
Yeah. Scotty Bowman.
But yeah, you don't see that much of that now. So so there are, but everything goes in cycles too. So eventually some team it'll work for, and it'll come back in favor again somehow too. So it's just how it goes.
It's all cyclical. You surprised us. Let's look at the league real quick. You surprised Washington got bounced by Carolina. I think Carolina's played really well, and they've got the best goaltending so far in the playoffs with consistency, and that's been Freddie Anderson of all people, who doesn't have a ton of wear and tear on him, Bill, because he didn't play a lot during the season, out injured with that knee injury. Carolina looks like a team that's, I mean, how are you going to get past Florida, though? I mean, that's the thing. Florida ends up winning in 7 over Toronto. Who do you got winning this Carolina Panther series? I mean, this is Jesus.
I have the Panthers winning it, but in a deep series. Carolina just dismantled Washington. There was only one game in that series. Game one in that series, Washington never trailed in regulation, but that's because that was Thompson's best game of the series.
Yeah,
and they really, especially in the third period onward, that was Carolina's game. Game 2 was the one game. Okay, the Capitals looked like the Capitals, and the rest of the series, game after game after game, was Carolina dominated it. So
cumulative effect of the way they play.
Yeah, now for sure. And I mean, now they might even be almost too rested going into game 1.
Yeah,
but I mean, the way that Florida is just built for the postseason, and when you're back-to-back conference champions and defending Stanley Cup champions, I'm always going to pick that team until somebody throws them to.
Till you show me otherwise. Yeah, the thing about Carolina is we know that they don't have that bona fide. That's why they traded for Mikko Rantanen. They wanted that guy. But for what they have, and they have talent there. I mean, Aho's a very talented player. Stahl's a great leader, and you got other pieces there that are really good players. That's why they've gotten to so many conference finals. Damn it, they might be the most well-coached team.
Right.
I mean, their players are bought into every element of puck support and all zones too. Like if I was still coaching, minor hockey, I just show them shift after shift of the Carolina Hurricanes. They are so well coached.
They are, and they're
fun to watch.
They're and it's in the consistency level too.
Oh, it's just shift after shift, line after line, same thing.
Yeah, there's rarely a drop off.
Yeah, amazing.
So I mean, they're one of those teams too that if you don't get them quickly, you're not going to get them.
Yeah.
So I mean, like as you said, we're just one hell of a coach. So I'm certainly not writing them off by any stretch of the imagination, but this is going to be a tough one for them to get through. So we'll see.
It's going to be tough in the West as well. The Dallas Stars are an unbelievable team.
Yeah.
That series was great with Winnipeg, and the scenes we saw at the end of that game after Mark Scheifele lost his father the night before. Just seeing the human side of hockey was absolutely incredible. I mean, the Stars owner sending the jet to send him back to Kitchener. I mean, it's just an incredible story, and the guts that Mark Scheifele showed in playing in that game and scoring. But who do you got coming out of the West? I mean, what a series this is going to be. Dallas is going to try and contain Edmonton. Edmonton dismantles Las Vegas in 5 games.
Yeah.
And Stuart Skinner back-to-back shutouts looks, I mean, I don't know where to go here.
No, I mean, the thing in this playoff here, too, is the Stars have had a couple dog games on the way. But they're a very deep team, all 4 lines. And with Heiskanen back, if Heiskanen were not back,
you have 2 true number 1 D-men.
Yeah. And just his ability to A, defend, and B, skate the puck down the ice himself. He just creates so much for his team. He started towards the end of that last series to look like himself again.
Yeah.
I just think that they're so deep, and I know that I said, well, to dethrone the conference champion, they're the team to beat. But But this is Dallas's third straight conference final. They're fourth in the last 6 years. So
And now they've got Rantanen.
Rantanen, and they have a healthy Heiskanen back. So I have them winning it.
Yeah, it's gonna be fascinating conference final. I hate the conference final because it means we only get one game a night now.
Yeah.
And there's actually nights without hockey coming up, which I can't stand. It's been great the first 2 rounds having multiple games every night. Oh, for somebody going through treatment and recovery, it's been a blessing for me. One last thing, Bill. The Leafs obviously got knocked out again, and boy, did they show a lack of guts in that game 7.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first in that game 5, just disgustingly ugly. Game 7, they come out. Austin Matthews throws the teammates under the bus and said there were too many passengers. This guy didn't do squad douche in the series for the most part and did nothing in Game 7 getting paid what he's getting paid. They've got, obviously, there's changes coming to Toronto. Marner is an unrestricted free agent. So is Tavares. They've got to retain Matthew Nyes. Are you interested in Marner? Do the Flyers look at Marner? Do you move him to the middle?
He's such a talented player, but no.
100-point performer in the regular season.
But no. But no, because, he has to be the guy you build your team around.
Yeah.
Do I trust him to be the guy I want to build my team around?
This isn't just one year where he's fell short in the playoffs. It's been a lot of years, and he falls apart.
He does when, and he pouts and he sulks, he gets frustrated, and just bad body language, and it's just
spin around and backhand pizza up the middle to make it 3-0 in the one game. I mean, come on.
He's such a gifted player, but in a lot of ways, I think like Nylander passed him in some ways. I know the numbers are what they are, but I don't like the mix. I haven't liked the mix in Toronto for years.
Yeah.
The thing with Marner too was that he didn't have to be the guy, right? Because they had Matthews, they had Tavares, right?
Yeah.
Nylander too was a super talented player. He just had to be one of the. But you needed him at times to be the guy who kind of stepped up and grabbed the bull by the horns, and what he would show frustration and immaturity, honestly.
Yeah,
So
he did it in that game 7 too. You saw the clip where he's going to the bench and wake the bleep up.
Yeah,
but dude, you got to wake up too. Like
I was gonna say, look in the mirror, dude, because it's so you have a finite number of dollars to go around. Could he play center if you want him to? Yeah, he could.
It's not ideal though.
Not ideal. But he's a terrific playmaker, and that nothing against the guy's skill levels. His skill levels are elite, but I don't tie it to be he is the guy I'm building around for the next X number of years. And he's not taking any discounts either, though. There will still be a bidding war on him.
Yeah. So, he's making $11 million, 10.9 now. He's going to get a raise.
He's going to get a raise, exactly. So, to me, it's just the price. The price tag is too high, and the downside is too high.
Yeah. The signing of John Tavares. Who would have thought all these years later that the New York Islanders will win more playoff series than the Toronto Maple Leafs, and that's been the case. It's amazing how that's kind of played out over this time, and it hasn't worked out for the Leafs. It's just the mix is not right, and I think Craig Berube did everything he could, but that group just had that propensity to melt down, and they did it once again. And damn, I almost feel bad for Leaf fans. I really do.
Yeah,
because of what this team has put the fan base through the ringer since '67. So much promise, so many times, and to just fall short. But I don't feel sorry for them because I got our fan base to feel sorry for, and we need to get back to the top as well. We'll see if they can do it under Rick Tocchet. Great stuff, Bill. You got to check out Bill's work at hockeyhotstove.com, PhiladelphiaFlyers.com, NHL.com as well. Plenty of stuff coming up on prospects. I know you got some stuff coming up on Bobby Brink, Prospect Pipeline. New episode is out as well. So check that out on the Flyers on demand and YouTube channels. We'll talk to you next time. Coming up Friday, we'll have Sean Couturier's exit day interview and much more on Flyers Daily.